All the but
Elizabeth Kaiser. Vice Governor Olson. Here. Members Albanian.
here. Declaration minutes.
I read the minutes and I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second. I have a motion and a second for discussion. Say approved, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
At the same time, motion carries. The dear, there's the comments.
Yes, you have your claim register from May, June, and July.
Okay. If I review interested. No issues, all vanity, motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the county register.
Wait a second. I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those approved, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Yes, I'm continuing with Leslie for a monthly project checking. I met with Nancy Cho, I think it's back in May, for the annual MS4 stormwater quality management plan. I will review it every year to make sure everything's up to date. Ben and I attended the progress meetings with Evo Valley. I'm continuing to put together a list of curb and lit locations that can be repaired. So far I am done with Glen Oaks Village. That was the one who I received a lot of complaints from. Everett ordered metal art, extended release pouches for catch basins and drainage systems. This is a mosquito growth regulator for pre-hatch and standing water control for mosquito larvae. We met with the Hancock County mosquito representative last week. And he is heavily in Hancock County right now, especially Hancock County, Cumberland. We usually treat for mosquitoes after they've hatched, but they're seeing better results if we get them at the earlier stages. So we went ahead and ordered those, so those will be going in the catch basins and inlets. And I'm monitoring the 13 homes that are currently in Parkview Village, and 6 homes in Grants Corner and Wawa, which is smooth. It came up.
So first of all, there's a guy that just does mosquitoes.
He is all about it. It's very interesting. He talked for a good hour. He loves it.
Someone like the health department.
Yes. He's all about it. He said he will catch them. He said he has a hard time closer to Marion County and Cumberland, because steal the batteries out of his job. Yeah, so far, we're good on West Nile. Fires out here, but yeah, he'll take them back, put them under a microscope. All the things. It's pretty interesting to hear, honestly. I was like, "Hmm." But it's pretty interesting.
So where does he, these, in these projects?
They'll put them in like the drainage, like as it comes out of the outfall, where the water normally stands. I can look up a few pictures because they're just little pouches that sit in there. But he said he's had a lot of success with it, so,
So this doesn't have structuring sites in it?
no, it's just, it's just stormwater related, so I wanted to make sure you guys knew, you guys all like who's your storm stuff at my inlets.
Yeah, so part of your storm system is the inlets where the water goes in, and some of them have a sump at the bottom, it's called a catch basin, and then it holds water. It also holds sediment, or, catches things, right, catch basin, and so those need to be treated for mosquitoes sometimes because they're holding that water, so.
We did have a question about the sports services down here.
That $16,000 was it going in addition to, but
Correct.
that's what we got, right?
Yes, we ran, if you look at the amounts, yeah, if you look at the amount beforehand, you'll see that we were almost at our contract amount. So we needed to amend it.
Oh,
Yeah. That was too much.
oh, I see. Okay,
That was the meeting.
okay. This,
I'll give the update on the 2024 stormwater improvements project. I think since the last meeting, we've had progress meeting each month, so June 10th, July 8th, and then we just had one in August, for August 12th. So construction has not started yet, but we did Citizens Gas, the gas utilities, complete with their work, so they're all on the way. Citizens Water has put together their work plan, and that's been signed and notice to proceed issued. They're in the middle of their relocations. We don't have a good outlook on when they'll be done with those relocations. But we have since spoken to the contractor Eagle Valley about the status and have asked them to provide a schedule for when they have plans for starting. And from the results of the work plan back and forth, most of the water main relocations that are needed are in the Division A project, so in the proper North neighborhood. In Division B, there's I think it's 7 different project areas where we need a contractor to get started, so we're hoping to see that schedule here soon. But with the delays, we will be issuing a change order for the time to extend the time of the project. So that they can get all over in the construction time frame. Pick up the update. With that.
Any questions?
yes, we were concerned, previously that the.
Yeah,
Is, I didn't remember that we had, I thought it was just, we were just moving gas, but I thought, I guess you're moving both gas and water.
yeah, and water, the work plan process just for a really long time to get it finalized. Basically, the project had PVC pipe called for water grade pipe, and so that allows you to be closer to the water main with your storm sewer. And a few iterations, they were still calling for those crossings to be looked like have water main lowerings and they weren't needed, so that was kind of the back and forth that was going on there, but we got it, finalized. There's a lot less water main relocations than they had initially thought, so, at least we're moving forward, at least, so.
Do you have a timeline on the water relocation for each one?
I don't, so a part of their schedule is they have to get permits from IDEM, so that's kind of the big question mark for when they may be able to start actually moving.
And that's for citizens,
And
yeah.
that's citizens has to get that.
Like the NOI? That,
Yes, I think so for the water mains. Mhm.
have they applied?
I hope so. I can check.
Can we ask for a copy of their application?
Sure.
So in Eagle Valley, if the project didn't have to schedule. I'm still getting those, so.
They have not given us a schedule yet. They would have had one, but they have not submitted one yet, and they said they'll give it to us once they know when they can start. And I think that's now, so we should be getting that, now.
They had delayed their start because they wanted to come in and get everything done at the same time. So they were waiting for those relocations to happen, and so that's what the delay has been, but they could have started sooner. There were parts of the project that did not require those relocations, so.
Yeah, approximately how long all the improvements will take, let's say, starting 90 days, 120, 180.
Well, they had mentioned the bulk of the work they thought they'd get done from like August to December. Knowing those, so there'll still be some restoration into the next month after that, but
But the change order is gonna extend it to a certain date that they would have, right? What is that?
yeah, and the change order is drafted to extend it, into, I think it's May. Of next year, so. That gives time for all of the restoration to grow and spring and future.
What was it, in previously?
Actually, this month was the substantial completion date, so.
So, we asked them to start getting the jobs.
Yeah, we, at the last August meeting, had urged them, mentioned that. In our opinion, they are able to start.
They're going to influence them, but
So part of them looking at that was the completion time. And now they're extending, and we're talking about extending next year, not even until May. So it doesn't make their bid look quite as attractive.
They're not asking for additional money, they're just asking for additional time, right? So the bid number that they gave is still holding, so they're gonna still do the work within that amount.
And technically, because the water mains have not moved, they could not finish the project by now, so. They have a right to request an extension.
they could have started with theory. Got 40, 50, 60% of them.
So why is that, extended out so far, is it that they can't?
The original construction timeline was 270 days to substantial, so, since it's been 270 days, so. The original substantial completion date added on that original time frame, what they had been.
But if they started. They could have finished it. You know. Closer.
That's kind of, we can't say yes or no to that, we still don't know, the water leads are still not.
So can we ask them for the reason that they don't want to start? They have chosen not to start to complete a portion of that.
It's because they did, yeah, when they did it, they were just gonna get in there and get it done, but
We have to
without knowing when the water mains are out of the way, they would have had to pull their crew out and then come back. So they just wanted to do it all at once.
Can you make that?
For them to begin the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said something to it at their other meeting last week.
Chuck, the Eagle Valley.
Does the extension of this timeline affect anything else that, then it's just leaves. Perfect. Is that what you
Right,
want?
so you, right, you just have delayed getting these problems fixed,
Yeah.
right, so. That's really the only downfall that we see is that you're not seeing the benefit of getting these, capital improvements repaired, right, so.
Does the town require them to submit maintenance bonds for work done?
I believe that's in the contract, I can double check, I think there's a. I guess it's a 3-year.
Yeah, it's usually a 3 year.
Right. When you're done, you can provide a bond that says, hey, warranty the work for your response.
Yeah, so if there's a problem, you know, you get a sinkhole or, you know, whatever, a problem with the installation of any of the infrastructure, that it'll go back from the bond to.
This is Cumberland Property North that we're talking about,
That's the Division A project, this property.
and you already been billed 150,000.
So that was, if that's the stored materials, payout fund was for stored materials, so Eagle Valley already purchased the PVC pipe for, it was just exclusively on Division A, but they're storing it currently, it's being installed.
Okay, so that's all I'm gonna charge for it.
So it's just the material cost, once it's installed, they'll be, the difference will be paid to Eagle Valley, for the install cost.
If you're talking about in your board report, how I listed out the financials, that's their charges, that has nothing to do with Eagle Valley.
Oh, right, so we have a contract to help through the construction process, they have these progress meetings and to help manage their contract, change orders, all those things, right? So that, I think what Caitlin's saying is that was some, fees to help the construction process.
Is this all related to construction management? Or design work too, or security?
We would have to look at that, if, yeah, some of it could have been.
I think that overall.
Or bill, oh, yeah. We haven't billed that much, not on construction, no. We would have to check on that to see what it was invoiced for,
Just curious.
because we haven't done design, you know. A year.
Yeah,
You've done the original agreement, amendment number 1 was for the survey. Amendment number 2 was for additional survey. CA and RPR. Amendment number 3 was additional design. And then amendment number 4 was additional CA and RPR. His original agreement was 111,800. But with the additional cost brought it to 433,600.
Okay.
that's a little overall.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right, that's not just construction. Yes,
When the work is done, do you guys inspect it or is Caitlin inspected? The improvements.
during construction, we will have a resident representative that an inspector here working side by side with the contractor inspecting as they do the installations.
You guys require like videoing after houses and stuff. Does town require that, I guess?
It should be in the contract docs, but a video of the area, both full tour, and
Video
then,
required.
and then. I don't know that televising is required, I'll have to check if it's in specs, but they do have to test it.
We've been doing it with Parkview, so if it's something you would like to see, then we can. Have it done.
Yeah, I don't think I want to see it.
I mean, like have it.
Yeah, I think that's, most municipalities do require videos from. So.
That catches us up. We prepare them, you can select when you want to do the other dates, only take this. Give us the outline of what our timeline would look like and then the dates and we have to let you know. And do it when and then the data that. The stage they're going to be at.
From the contractor, they should have dates at this point, yeah, I feel they should be able, their schedule will have dates and direct that to this.
Is it typical for them to submit bids without a schedule?
The schedule's technically required 10 days after, I think, a signature of contract, I think that's in. Guys, but.
We just haven't pushed that because we know that there's parts of the project they think they're on because of citizens delay, so. We would just try to work with them.
Well, my questions, thank you.
We'll follow up on those few questions that you had, we will just take a look at the steps to make sure.
Sure.
Good questions.
This is
In your board legal training.
Okay. We will try and move through this quickly. Can you turn the chair? This is a little bit different. So in putting together some training for stormwater utilities, it's always a little bit difficult for me, especially for this specific utility. One, I don't know how much information from each review comes into this grid. And there's so much federal regulation that's tied into this. So I took a shot in the dark to put this together. We can do additional trainings if we don't cover everything that you'd like to see this. But when we talk about the stormwater utility generally, I want to start out with how the board is established. So essentially, your board is established because of the adoption of and the incorporation of Indian Code 81.55 of all. That is essentially the stormwater code and utility ordinance. There are 3 members of the board, 3 of you, and they're all appointed by the executive of the municipality. So here at Cumberland, that is the president and the town council that would appoint those. Each member here serves 3-year terms. as defined by the local ordinance. And then a member, so one of you can be removed at any time by the executive, when they believe to be in the best interest of the department. There are certain boards where there's a requirement of, a lack of losing the public's trust, things of that is not. Where it is up to the executive at every time. So that's kind of how you guys are set up, and then you've got certain duties. And the duties and powers of the board are laid out in Indiana Code 8.1.556, which essentially says to begin with, you go back and look at 8.1.534, which is the general utilities statute and power. So these are the powers that the board shall have, and you will fix the number of employees of the utility. So you're looking at the stormwater utility only. You will adopt the rules governing the employment of employees and making the proper classifications. You will appoint a superintendent. Hire professionals and experts like what you have here to help you with the provision of the service. You will submit a budget to the fiscal body, so and the legislative bodies and town council about what your need for them to be. You're going to recommend to the legislative body reasonable and just rates for the charges and services for the utility. You're going to appropriate lease, rent, purchase, hold all real property, personal property of the utility. You can award contracts. You're to make a monthly report to the fiscal officer, so the clerk treasurer technically of this, of the receipts and disbursements of money. These are the things that are generally set out, and they're a little more generic in this code section because they apply to all utilities. This is one of those reference back to, so when we talk about a water utility, you have an electric utility, you have a wastewater utility, these rules apply to them. But there are certain ones that apply specifically to you as stormwater. After you hold a hearing, the following public notice, you can make findings and determinations. Install, maintain, operate a stormwater collection and disposal system. Make all necessary or desirable improvements to the grounds or premises under your controls, stormwater control. And issue and sell bonds in the district of the name, unit, so you can do debt service to carry this out. Now I bolded number 3, because that's really what is the main crux of what we are here to do. It is to install, maintain, and operate stormwater collection and disposal system. So that begs the question, why? Why do we have to do it? Well, we go back to 1972, the passage of the Clean Water Act by the U.S. legislature. Within the Clean Water Act, they have a permitting program created to control the discharge of pollutants into the navigable waters of the U.S. What does that mean? Well, if a boat can go in the water and progress, that is a navigable water of the U.S. And most of them are connected. So the way to think of it is Lake Erie is connected to the Erie Canal and all these tributaries. They go down to the Ohio River, connect to the Mississippi River. They're all connected within, so you can navigate throughout the U.S. And the concern of us, pollutants getting within the water stream because then it's throughout the United States. Within that, they created the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES. With NPDES, you hear that again and again, but it is this system that is designed to take care of the pollutants that we're going to get to navigable waters. Within the NPDES system and the permitting, we have requirements that the locals can adopt the municipal separate storm sewer systems, or MS4. These are a lot of these things that you will have heard through the process of different acronyms, because they love acronyms here. And we're going to get into each one of these a little bit more in detail as we move on. As part of your MS4, you talked a little bit about it right now, your stormwater management plan, or your SWMP. That's going to be part of your MS4 in the ordinance over safety. In your ordinance, so in here, you have sections that cover the prohibited discharges and connections to your MS4s in your stormwater utilities. The quantity management, the pollution prevention for construction sites, and the quality management post-construction. Those are the main categories that you have within your MS4 ordinance for addressing pollutants. And it makes sense, right? So you don't want to have connections to your stormwater utility that are illicit discharges or improper discharges, which are going to add pollutants to this, and we'll get into that a little bit more. You want to make sure that you have a quantity management system, so you're not overflowing the system, but it also allows for the catch basins and everything to pull down some of the sediment and remove some of the pollutants that are in groundwater, why there is in stormwater. The pollutant prevention for construction sites, we've got construction out there, there's a lot of erosion, a lot of different materials that are used. You want to make sure that you've got the proper erosion control and correction to make sure that you're not, the constructor is not adversely impacting your stormwater system and the quality after the construction is complete with it. So I was thinking about how to do this, and I decided some of the best ways is by pictures, right? So when we talk about the inconvenience and what you're looking at, the position of the EPA, this is the one I took from the EPA, is that whenever it rains, snows, sleets, water hits hard surface and takes anything that's on the surface with it through drains, pipes, and ditches to local rivers, lakes, and streams. This is why we have pollution control. And oftentimes what you will hear is a question about impervious surface. We have a bunch of farmland. It rains. If there's a lot of green infrastructure, it rains. Those that ground of the farmland or green infrastructure allows the rainwater to get into the ground, right? It absorbs it into the system, which will be like over here on the map. What happens is when you have development, you have impervious surfaces. That can be roads, that can be parking lots, that is rooftops, driveways, all that stuff. That does not allow the rainwater and everything to get there. So that stormwater needs to go someplace. And so you create your stormwater system, which is this type of stuff that they designated here. The problem with the impervious surfaces in the picture is when stormwater hits it, the water flows. If it's on roadways or driveways, you're gonna have oils and gasoline and all of these things that come from vehicles. If it is close to a park area, I think they actually have a picture of a person walking a dog. You have an animal, fecal matter, or everything that's going into your system. And so you have to think through all of these things when it comes to the NPDES process. Then we hit your MS4 issues, right? So here's the MS4s. Remember, it is a separated stormwater system. So why is it separate? Well, this picture is a design right here down the middle. One, you have the household and the household waste. This house should be connected to your sanitary sewer, where your use of water, toilets, sinks, laundry, that kind of stuff should get captured into your sanitary sewer system, sent through that system to your treatment plant, and then is there as probably non-potable water, but still clean enough water to introduce back into your areas. Your separated stormwater system is essentially everything else. You have the catch basins, which were referenced earlier, that are along roadways when it rains. It captures all the runoff from roof and impervious areas. During construction, when things aren't there to really capture it, it all gets captured into your MS4 system. Now, this MS4 system is very complicated, and that's why you have Westler here to help. And so right now, I guess it makes sense to turn this part of what you talk about MS4 and what you guys work with, and we move on to the next one.
Have a presentation break.
And you guys will give me slides.
I don't know that I want to share it.
I started taking.
I saw you guys taking notes, so I was waiting until we're in your moment.
All right, so, we're gonna talk about stormwater pollution prevention and protecting your local waterways. So, we had a good introduction to the requirements. Your MS4 permit program. So MS4, you have a permit from the state that you have to implement. And as was said, it stands for municipal sector storm sewer systems. That's 4S's. And as a town, you're required to comply with the state issued permit that is issued by IDEM. And you're trying to prevent stormwater pollution and improve the quality of water in your waterways. So the next slide is just your list of waterways. So these are all the streams that you're trying to protect: Grassley Creek, Buck Creek, Cumberland Creek, Lead Creek, Snyder Branch, Hammond Branch, and Briar Arm Ditch. And the next page shows a map of those locations. So they're the blue lines on the map. They're all labeled there just so you get an idea where all of those streams are. So all the water that falls within Cumberland flows to one of those streams, and so you're trying to prevent pollution from getting into those waterways, right? And the stormwater flows through your pipe systems that then discharge into those streams as well. So next page, what's being done to protect your local waterways? So there's educational programs. Contractors are being educated, citizens. You have ordinances, so you're prohibiting illicit discharges into the storm system, and you're enforcing construction site pollution control. And then you're doing inspections and monitoring. What Caitlin does is inspects with the active construction sites to make sure they're complying, right? Good housekeeping for your municipal operations. Construction plan review and inspection, training for municipal employees. So there's training that goes on with the board and then with the employees as well every year. And then annual reporting. So once a year, you have to report on all the great things you're doing here in Cumberland for this program. And that's due April 1st every year. So you report on calendar year, January to December, but they give you a few months to report together. So it's due April 1st. Okay. So the minimum control measures, there's 6 of them. First is public education. Second is public involvement. Third is illicit discharge. Fourth is construction. Fifth is post-construction, and 6th is municipal operation. So I'm going to go through just a few highlights of some of the things that we're doing here in town. So the first with education is when we were going to do the rate increase for the projects, there was this postcard that went out to all the residents and, you know, why is your stormwater rate increasing? And second page is the other side of that postcard. So we give a QR code that they can go and learn a little bit about the projects and the need for the increase in their ADRU. So that was some education that went out to the citizens. The next page is just a map of all the project areas. So, you know, Casey's been reporting on these projects that are going to be constructed soon. And these are the areas you can see they're all spread around town. And so we're able to do a big impact by getting them all done at the same time. The next page is a term, another acronym, SWPPP, is Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. And I like to say SWIP, like short, I call them SWIPs. So there are construction SWIPs. So the construction projects that are going on, actually even your construction project is going to be starting does have a SWIP and it has a permit. And so to prevent erosion and control pollutants on the construction site. So as part of that process, the town is reviewing plans that come in from developers, and when these construction projects come in, the town reviews the plans to make sure they comply. They're issuing permits and then doing inspections to make sure they comply. There's documentation of all that, as well as enforcement. So you have an ordinance that would enforce a construction project that is not complying, and make sure they control their sediment and don't make such a mess to prevent pollution in the waterways, right? The next is post-construction SWIP. So when a project is developed, there's a post-construction component, which is a real common practice is a wet detention pond. right? So the water from the neighborhood flows into the detention pond. It holds the water, it releases it slowly. It also allows sediments and solids to settle to the bottom of the pond. And so the water that comes out the other side of the pond is cleaner, it's been treated. And so that's the concept here. The town's criteria that they're trying to meet when a developer develops one of these post-construction measures is 80% TSS removal, so that's total suspended solids. So when it rains, water collects solids, it goes into these ponds, and then it settles out. So you're getting 80% of those solids settled out, and it's cleaner on the other side. Does that make sense?
How does that compare to other municipalities?
It's a very common standard all across the state, even other states across the country use that 80% TSS removal. So there's a plan review process, there's long-term maintenance, and there's inspection. So the town has to go around once every 5 years and inspect all the ponds to make sure that those that own those ponds are maintaining them, they're functioning properly. Okay. The next SWIP is a municipal SWIP. So this page is your Public Works Department out behind here. And this is the map that's in that plan where you can see there's the storage buildings, there's a trash dumpster, there's brush stockpiles, and soil stockpiles. So at that facility, the town is trying to control erosion and pollutants from this site. So doing the best management practices on your municipal facilities, okay? The next page shows an example. There's an inspection form that the employees at their facilities can run down a checklist and say, hey, am I implementing the right kind of practices I should be doing? And Westler comes in once a year and does kind of an outside audit. We run through the checklist of the outside set of eyes to kind of notice if things need to be changed. The next is, these are some of the things that you're doing within your MS4 system. So catch basin cleaning, you want to come through the tops of your inlets clear. Sometimes if they get clogged, you need to clean out the sediments in the bottom of them, right? The next is scouring repair. So at the point where a pipe discharges out into a stream or out into an open ditch, you can get scouring and erosion that happens at that point. There's a couple pictures here that you can see. And so as you recognize those issues, they need to be repaired because that causes a lot of erosion and sediment. The next is chemical storage. So this is an example of what not to do. We don't want any rusty, old, leaky drums sitting around. The next page kind of shows a good practice for chemical storage that they're maybe stored indoors on some of your containment pallet with a lid and it's not leaking, right? And this shows an employee kind of doing an inspection to make sure that everything's being stored properly. The next is spill cleanup, right? That we should always clean up spills and not let them escape and end up in the watershed. The next is illicit discharge. So this is another ordinance, and I don't know if we'll get into it a little bit more, but basically anything that goes in your storm system should be stormwater only, right? So let's say that someone has their washing machine and like the slide here, it's supposed to be connected to the sanitary sewer, that discharge. But let's say someone's being lazy and they just discharge it out their back door and it runs down the alley and it ends up in your storm system, that's an illicit discharge. So your goal is to detect those, like find those and then eliminate them. Right? And sometimes it's like a cross connection, there's all these pipes underground and someone maybe takes a sanitary connection and puts it into your storm system. And you're supposed to try to detect those and then eliminate them and get that pipe back in the sanitary system. Does that make sense? Okay. Next is a visual of what an illicit discharge might look like. So if you've ever spilled gasoline or oil, it gives like a rainbow sheen. That's an indication of pollution. The next shows a stream that has a lot of sediment in it. You can see it's kind of clear and then it becomes like chocolate milk. Those are all signs of illicit discharges. The next page is about, this is more like public involvement. You have a hotline for your citizens to call and report illicit discharges, problems with construction sites, problems with erosion, flooding. So that is a phone number that is on the website, and monitored. Your permit requires you to have this hotline, and if it goes to like a voicemail or an email, you just have to check at least once a day, right? So there's regulations that require you to allow your citizens to report issues, right? The next is mapping and inspections. You're required to map your system, but you have it mapped. The outfalls to the streams have to be located latitude and longitude, right? You have to kind of give those coordinates. All of your underground pipes and your ditches, the receiving streams and illicit discharges are also supposed to be mapped so that you can start to look at the map and say, oh, well, we have a lot of illicit discharges in this area of town. Maybe we need to do some more education, or maybe there's some issues here, right? So, those are some of the things, you're supposed to be visually inspecting your system, making sure that it's functioning properly, and then outfall inspections once every 5 years. Okay. The next page shows an outfall inspection example. You want to do your outfall inspection during dry weather, right? Because when it's dry, there should be no water in your storm system. So that's a big time to check for illicit discharges, right? If there's something in your pipe when it's dry, that's an indication, right? Now, it could be groundwater getting in, or, water from a previous rain finally getting into the system, but that's a good place to start, so. And then, so just in conclusion, be aware of all your activities that can impact stormwater. Use preventative measures to keep pollutants from mixing with stormwater. Use proper cleanup and disposal procedures. Report illicit discharges, report erosion problems, monitor your construction activities, and participate in annual training. So, if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer, but you've been trained.
Now, the fun thing about this, of course, is how everything seems to be connected. Back in the day when the sewers were initially put in, there were these great sanitary things which were able to take water. People didn't understand differences between your wastewater and your stormwater and how they would impact each other. And so you had combined sewers, often the legislature, the federal government said, you can't have this. And the reason that you can't have it is twofold. One, when we talk about your sewer loop, so the sanitary sewer, it is a very delicate system where you gotta have the right amount of bugs within your treatment plant that are able to take care and digest essentially the waste that is in there, so that the remainder, the effluent, is clean enough to be introduced back into the system. If you have your stormwater and sanitary sewer tied together, you're going to be impacting on a rainy day a lot of water that's going to come into your system. And there are two things. One, it's going to blow off the balance of the bugs. And then two, the system's not going to be able to hold it, so you're just going to be discharging out and have illicit discharges. I think it's $25,000 a day for each violation that you have under the sewer system. So that's why you want to separate. As Mary was talking about with the stormwater, you obviously don't want to have your sewer stuff coming into your stormwater, because that is going to be an illicit discharge as well into the system, because that's not being treated. Its treatment is essentially different. What you refer to as another acronym, BMPs, or best management practices, how you stack things through the attack. What is the flow? How long is it kept? Cleaning out catch basins and things like that. So how do you find those illicit discharge or illicit connections? Oftentimes what you have to do, and I don't know that you have this problem here in Cumberland, but I can tell you, Terrico, we had several problems in this, especially where people were tying in their either stormwater into the sewers or sewers into the stormwater, or essentially smoke tests. You put a smoke bottle essentially into your stormwater, and you see if it comes up into that house, because if it comes up into that house, then you've got stuff connected in your house to our stormwater. You put it into the sewer and see if it comes out the other way. So that is a problem. How you can find these things, but sometimes it's very difficult.
I should have.
You mentioned the SWMP. What are the management things that we have in place? So some of this was in, this drainage too, but the collection, the conveyance, and the release. So with this map, you see the stormwater coming down into this, impervious surface, gets into this catch basin here, and then we have a wet pond setting out. This is done several different ways. One could be a catch basin that we have as part of our streets, the other is the retention ponds that we talked about. And then a method of getting it into the infiltration. Here, you know, Buster had a great depiction, I wish I had found that picture and put it on here, but, right. The post-construction strips, right? This stormwater map here. When you look at that, the stormwater pump, that is a perfect example of what we talk about. When we talk about how to use it. So during construction, you have the strips that are construction, erosion control, the fencing, the riprap, all that stuff to keep the erosion control. But what do you do afterwards? Because when you're completed with construction, you have more impervious surface, means you're gonna have more storm. That's why we have these retention ponds. Any big development you see, you've got these retention ponds. Those have to be designed to hold enough water, allow for the cooling of it. And so you have the inflow coming in and you have the outflow going out, which is lower than where the inflow is. But it allows for the sediment to reach the bottom of the pond before it gets out. That's where you get to that, you're moving to 8% of more solids. I'm going fast, I'm sorry. So that's kind of the general framework as to why it is you do what you do. But how do you? Because as you know, it's not cheap. You guys just have to go through a rate, so a regular price. But under Indiana Code 8.1.557, you're required for the acquisition, construction, installation, operation, and maintenance of facilities and land for stormwater systems. And you can finance that proceeds of special tax and district bonds. So you take out a bond from that special district, the assumption of liabilities incurred. So when you take on, you can have developers build certain parts that you're putting into your development plan, and then you assume those stormwater systems after the construction is done. Service rates, and these are the ERUs, the equivalent residential unit. So many acronyms. So an ERU is for every residential unit, that's one, and then you take that and you will apply it for commercial. How many of these equivalent residential units apply there, and then you multiply the get your fee, and it's $20 here in Cumberland as an ERU. Commercial will be much higher than that. But that's kind of your service rates. Revenue bond, so you bond against those proceeds that are going to come in off those rates of that $20. And any other available funds. Now, after a public hearing, obtaining the approval of the fiscal body, you may assess and do the user fees. That's kind of what the process was that you went through. I think one of the first meetings that was here, that was a fun time, that you were having to deal with that. But here's another part about this that is interesting. You are a special taxing district as a stormwater utility. And what that means is when the town created stormwater utility, immediately the operation of law, the entire corporate boundaries of Cumberland became a special taxing district, saying, allowing you guys to pass technically a tax. Now, when you look at this, all territory in the district and all territory added to the district is considered to have received a special benefit from the stormwater collection and disposal facilities of the district equal to or greater than the special taxes imposed. So what does that mean? Yes, that you can issue a special benefits tax. So another way of funding projects, if you can't get it from your ERUs to the rates, is to raise necessary revenues to pay for the bonds after approval by the fiscal body. Levy a special benefit tax upon the property of the stormwater district in the amount necessary to meet the pay for the principal amounts of bonds or, as they severally mature, together with all accruing interest and certify the tax levy each year to the fiscal officer of the unit, by the department at the same time, the same manner as other levies and taxes are collected. What this means is there is a potential that if you need to, you can ask the council to pass a tax to help pay for your system.
Wow.
None of the communities that I run in have taken this step. All gone by the fees, ERUs and they go with. Because it is a weird thing in the way people's brains work. It's a fee that we place as an ERU, it's essentially the same thing. My guess is they're getting it on the tax bills. Or is it utility? But it's essentially a $20 per tax. But as an ERU and a fee for stormwater, it is not conceived to be a tax. People pay taxes. And so most of the people are stay away from special benefits tax, but that is something that is out. I know I ran through this really quickly, and there is a lot more stuff out there. But I am glad that I have narrowed it down to this. Now, the tax levy and certified chariots shall be estimated, entered upon tax duplicate, and shall be collected and enforced in the same manner as state and county taxes. So if you go by the state special benefits tax, it is on your tax levy every spring and fall. Pay it in spring and then fall, and pay it at the same time. My guess is we're not going to be looking at that, but that's an option. That is what I prepared today. I think we kind of set out pretty well. To get done. We will have, I told Caitlin that I want to do another training throughout here because there are so many other things in the statute that also apply to me. But these are the major things that I'll be there. So, thank you.
This is great. I haven't had this for 2 years that I'm before it's set up. Yes, I would love that, but.
Yeah, awesome.
And one thing we can do is we'll put together a list of all the acts. There are.
So for me in my role, I see a lot of that discharge, in basements with fires. And I oftentimes wonder why it's not mandated when it's discovered that regardless of whether the seller wants to repair or not, that they don't have to discover. They're rejecting the south side. I've seen some crazy stuff. Do this, but I run into it out here in Hannah, unfortunately, none because old homes, basements, that type of thing, they really weren't kind of washing and dryer down there, to create space for them. They just decided to project it out there, but a lot of times because it's sitting, it's ready to hold. And it makes me panic. Because is that something that Cumberland can look at? Or is that you have to help you find it?
Well, I would say in the county, it would be the county, but if something like that is found in Cumberland, and Cumberland has ordinances to enforce that and require that to be piped to a sanitary system.
Yeah, my mom knew they.
Because when you talk about those open homes, it gets a little bit difficult, because it's not just tying it into the sanitary system. It is getting the sump pump to pump it up, because most of the time when you're in the basement, your sanitary pipe is above you in the ceiling. And so you gotta pump it up there and then eject it out, so you gotta get the ejector, that gives a lot of money. But it's still something. Wow.
No, I'm looking for that. Gonna be like that same thing.
We usually find them very, state sanitary sewer improvements more than just stormwater.
Yeah, I see them all every inspection.
Right. Do you have any board member comments?
Thank you.
Future agenda items.
I'm not sure, I will not be here, because I have to go to the National Arts Conference that week. I don't know if Ben will send it on that meeting or not, but I'm going to go. It's the second time I've had to fly, and I'm not looking forward to it.
There's no further business.
Second motion.
Here, so entertain a motion, if you want a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn board meeting.
Okay. You have a motion and a second. There's discussion. All those approved, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those same time. Motion carries.
Your turn.